Well, one of the things about our program is you really do never know what you're going to get, and that demonstration by Professor was a perfect example. Thank you so much for that, Professor. It was really fascinating. Our next guest is Randy Kearse, who is a motivational author and speaker, motivational speaker and author, and he's been joined by John Shuford also. So we're gonna, three of us talk in just a few moments, but I wanted to start, first of all, by showing you the two books that Randy has written, but also just reading an excerpt from the back of Changing Your Game Plan. Once deemed a menace to society by a judge who sentenced him to 15 years, Randy Kearse served 13 years, 6 months, and 2 days in federal prison. He returned home a new man with a new perspective, a fresh focus, and a strong determination to succeed. In his first book of its kind, Changing Your Game Plan is about the journey of change one must embark on in order to live a life with a positive, productive, and successful life after prison. A no-holds-barred blueprint of how to succeed after one's street game plan fails and leads to incarceration. Within 18 months of his release, Randy Kearse self-published Street Talk, the official guide to hip-hop and urban slanguage. It started Positive Urban Literature Incorporated and myprisonjournal.com. He's also appeared on radio, TV, and featured in numerous print and digital media venues. Thank you, Randy, for joining us.
Thank you.
First of all, I met you last summer. I think it was at the August Quarterly.
Yes.
And you had your stand-up with your book.
Yes.
And from then to now, you've been very busy, but I want to kind of back up and get into this a little bit more and talk about how you started writing these two books.
Okay. My writing stems from my term of incarceration. I was incarcerated in 1992 for being involved in a drug conspiracy, and that landed me a 15-year sentence in federal prison. And within that time, I just knew that I needed to do something different with my life, and I started to look at my life and seeing what I can do differently. So I just gravitated towards writing and just trying to plant some seeds for a better future for myself.
Now, I talked about the first book, which was Changing Your Game Plan. This is the one that you had when I met you.
Right.
This one is From Incarceration to Incorporation. That's an awesome title.
Thank you.
The Rise and Fall and Rise Again of, and then it's you and another author.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about this book.
From Incarceration to Incorporation is pretty much like the sequel to Changing Your Game Plan, and it takes you through our childhood, me and the other author, J.M. Benjamin, award-winning author, and it talks about the pact that we made while we were incarcerated to come out and do the things that we said we're going to do, be a positive contributor to our community, to start our own businesses, and just to show society that regardless of what mistakes that you have made, that you can come home and do something different with your life. And that's what this book talks about, just from incarceration. We're once in prison, now we're bona fide business owners and things like that.
That's fantastic. What message do you have for young people?
The message that I have for young people is not to get caught up in the matrix. And when I say the matrix, I mean this whole illusion of the streets, this whole illusion of grandiose, ghetto fabulous and street fame and drugs and gangs and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, none of it is worth it. So my message to them is look at my life, see some of the mistakes that I made, and not follow in those same paths and fall victim to the same pitfalls that a lot of them fall victim to. I talk about peer pressure, I talk about the pressure to join gangs, stuff like that, and just basically just trying to show them that there's a better way.
So your past experiences enable you to help people?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, I've come from the same neighborhoods that a lot of these young people are coming from, and I've been exposed to a lot of the same things that they're being exposed to. So I'm trying to give them, from my experience, how to navigate the pitfalls that I fell victim to, and not for them to fall victim to them. I stress education, because without education, you're not really going to go too far in this life.
Accomplished a lot since you've been released from prison. I'm curious as to how your past affects your present and in future. What is the perception that people have when they found out you were in prison?
Well, the perception has generally been positive, because people look at what I'm doing now opposed to what I did before. And a lot of times, especially, I tell people it's not how much time I did, it's look at what I did with the time.
Right.
And that's what's important, because, I mean, when you look at it, you have some people that never been to prison and still not living life to its full potential.
That's an excellent point. So what would you consider something that inspires you?
When I'm when I do a conference or do I do a speech and I'm talking to young people, and after I say, you know, I deliver my speech, that they engage me and ask questions and inquiring about my past and what they can do. You know, like I had guys come to me ask how could they quit a gang, or what they suggest the best way to exit a gang. Or when somebody comes to me and says that my book inspired them to change their life around, that's inspiring.
That really caught me. I want to, really quick, I want to look at some of the chapters in your books, because they're provocative. You know, they are, the journey begins worrying about the wrong things. 40 years old, running out of time.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Now, let me just say, because
Sure.
at 40 years old, it's harder to start building your life. So that's why I tell people, you can rip and run at 20, 19, 25, but then when you turn 40 and 45 years old and you don't have a work history, we're not even talking about a criminal history,
Right.
You don't have a work history, it makes the employment harder to gain, because you don't have nothing to show that you've
Right.
ever done. So that's what I say, 40 years old and running out of time.
Prison, the life-saving factor.
For me, prison was one of the life-saving factors, because I became so out of control that it was either prison or death.
And what about Misery Loves Company?
I mean, you don't have to go to prison to find miserable people. You got miserable people all over the
Yeah,
place.
that's
But
true.
I mean, when people see that you're trying to do something different with your life, and they're trying to see that you're trying to do something positive, you always have people that'll knock you and be negative towards you and things like that.
And the thing that I found too is you have to be careful, because you know, you're used to, or you're kind of prepared for the outright discouragement. But it's the subtle discouragement, you know, that, well, this is as much as you've done, that's great. And then they want to stop you there and say, it's great that you did that, and that's all they expect from you. John, I'd like to pull you into this. What were you guys talking about in the green room?
Oh, we were